Aliens demanded Earth's submission, yet she only smirked, pressed a single key, and chuckled. The Armada appeared, without warning, swallowing the stars. Above the planet, countless bees sharp and glinting like obsidian shards hovered in eerie silence. News outlets everywhere streamed the spectacle. Non-stop panic erupted. Governments scrambled. Militaries mobilized. But deep inside a hidden command center, in Colorado, one young woman named Clara sat before a console no one else dared. The invaders had broadcast a message declaring Earth inferior, labeling humanity too immature to hold sovereignty. They promised to conquer, colonize, and reshape the world. Leaders argued endlessly over diplomacy versus resistance. Yet Clara noticed something odd in their signal, an unguarded subchannel, faint but alive beneath the main broadcast, clearly meant for fleet coordination. Her fingers flew, tracing the current, and a grin tugged at her lips. Clara wasn't a soldier or a general, she was a communications engineer whose pastime was decoding forgotten signals on old radios. Moment of cosmic war, she was an anomaly, a civilian with the sharpest weapon Earth suddenly had, while brass screamed strategies of missiles and orbital defenses. Clara powered up her homemade rig. The console before her was assembled from scavenged satellite pieces and a battered amateur radio station she had dragged into the bunker. As she liked to say, old gear still works when fancy toys fail. She tapped a key, sending a faint pulse through the channel. Her breath caught as several alien vessels twitched out of formation, briefly confused. No one else noticed. They were too busy panicking over trajectories and weapon ranges. Clara's eyes gleamed. The alien system wasn't encrypted properly. They were using layered protocols she'd seen in ancient satellite chatter, dressed up with alien modulation. Whoever designed it had underestimated the inventiveness of people who once bounced signals off the moon with scrap equipment. Another pulse, this time 3 cruisers, spun awkwardly before stabilizing. Bit her lip, stifling a laugh. Armada looked powerful, but its coordination relied on fragile threads of signal discipline, and threads can be. Word spread across defense councils that Earth had only hours before the fleet fired. Clara barely heard. She was busy mapping the alien call-and response, building a picture of a nervous navy, dependent on a flagship hidden deep in formation. The whole armada was a puppet show, its strings pulled by rhythm. Rhythms could be broken. She leaned back, remembering how as a teenager she hijacked a local radio station for fun, replacing ads with her own music. People thought it was sabotage. She just wanted to see if it could be done. Now older, that same impulse surged, but this time what she was broadcasting wasn't jingles. It was kiss. A colonel barked. "What do you think you're doing?" Clara didn't look up. "Winning," she whispered. Her fingers flew. Carefully timed pulses slid into the alien channel. On radar, a destroyer veered off course and slammed into a cruiser. Gasps rippled through the bunker. Clara only kept tapping. Her signal bent alien tones into spirals, a musical sabotage that shifted from order into discord. Ships began scattering like startled birds. Alien commanders shouted in panic as their systems filled with conflicting orders. Engines flared in opposite directions. Lasers fired wildly into darkness. Clara's signal crawled deeper, weaving into their comms like ivy on a wall. This wasn't just disruption, it was translation. She was speaking their voice, teaching them to doubt. Earth had no planet killer guns, no massive fleets, But Clara had something. Simpler, the patience to listen where others didn't, to find power in the silence. She leaned forward and sent a sharp burst. The flagship shuddered. Every alien ship froze, waiting for orders. Clara pressed the key again, releasing her crafted signal. The Armada convulsed. Engines stalled, weapons retracted, formations shattered. To the aliens, Earth no longer looked primitive. Looked predatory. Ships peeled away in panic, fleeing into the stars. On Earth, leaders and officers stared in. Clara slumped back, sweat across her brow, a faint smile on her lips. Hadn't destroyed them yet, but she had made them afraid, and fear was the first step toward victory. Even after the fleet vanished, Clara remained at the console. While others cheered and called presidents, she stared at the faint traces of alien chatter, still humming in the void. The retreat wasn't final. No fleet that size quit its mission. They'd regroup, analyze, and return sharper. The colonel, quieter now, approached her. "What did you do?" he asked. His voice trembled, half wonder, half doubt. Clara only shrugged. "I spoke their tongue, not the speech they broadcast to us, but the code they use to order machines. I gave them a different song to follow." The colonel stared, confused, but before he could press for more, a lieutenant burst in with new data. Long-range scanners tracked the Armada retreating just past lunar orbit, beyond the reach of ground-based batteries, yet close enough to watch. Clara leaned in. They hadn't left. They'd simply stepped back, tucking themselves just outside the usual human detection bubble. "They're probing," she murmured. The room's air shifted as reality settled in. The world had celebrated prematurely. This fight was not finished. Clara asked for a direct feed from the satellites near the moon. She didn't want the public stream. She wanted the faint background chatter the aliens assumed no human could parse. At first the signals were chaos. Fragments, overlaps, static. But the more she listened, the clearer a pattern emerged. The invaders sounded frightened. Their voices, mechanical or otherwise, wavered. They were asking how a human signal could infiltrate their systems. Clara smiled thinly. Fear made them sloppy. Sloppy made decoding easier. She worked without pause, snatching a granola bar tossed by a colleague, forgetting to drink. Hours blurred. As day cycled into night and back again, she mapped the alien command web. She found that the flagship was more than a warship. It was the metronome of the fleet, pulsing the rhythm that kept every vessel aligned. Cut that pulse, and the formation unraveled. That realization mattered more than any missile. She remembered dismantling her father's shortwave radio as a child just to see if she could coax a new sound from it. The same rule held. Reach the hub and you could unweave the whole net without firing a shot. But to reach it she needed power. Her jury-rigged console had fooled a surprise fleet. The Armada would now brace for interference. To punch through, she required a transmitter of global scale. And that meant convincing every nation to hand her control. Stepping away from the console for the first time in a day, she stretched. In the strategy chamber she entered to silence. Generals, ministers, and heads of state watched the young woman who'd forced an Armada back with a single signal. "We can't hold them forever," one general admitted. "We need more weapons." Clara cut him off with a firm shake of her head. "You will never outbuild them. They've centuries on us. You can outthink them. Reroute the global satellite network into a single node. Every broadcast tower, every dish, every transmitter. Combine them and I'll make a signal strong enough to reach their flagship." The room buzzed with skepticism. Was humanity about to bet everything on one tinkerer's theory? Some pushed for conventional defenses, but the proof was visible. Clara had done in one night what arsenals could not. Reluctantly, leaders agreed. Technicians worldwide reconfigured satellites and towers, channeling bandwidth into the Colorado bunker. Clara returned to a console now fed by the raw voice of the planet. The responsibility nearly buckled her knees. She had loved midnight decoding as a pastime, not leading humanity. But as data streams flowed across her screen, resolve settled in. This wasn't about her ego. It was about what the underestimated could achieve together. Beyond the moon, alien commanders fought to keep order. Reports flooded their chambers. Ships malfunctioning, orders contradicting, the echo of a human pulse inside their systems. Their pride was bruised. Some urged immediate retaliation to erase the shame. Others counseled caution. This human voice was stranger than any weapon. They argued, their glowing schematics jittering with doubt. Clara sent a first test through the global array. Earth seemed to vibrate, a pulse radiating in orbit, relayed satellite to satellite. It was not random noise but deliberate pattern, a music shaped by simple harmonic ratios humans had used for tuning for ages. She'd discovered the aliens' control combined tones and intervals, mathematical harmonies echoing their biology. By bending those intervals, she could pluck at the fleet like a giant instrument. She composed in frequency. Satellites as strings, dishes as drums, transmitters as horns. Operators watched astonished as code wove into music not meant for human ears but loaded with human intent. The flagship's consoles blared alerts. Ships convulsed as commands tangled. The council shrieked. No race had ever broken their harmony. Yet here was Earth, bending an entire armada out of alignment. Clara hovered over the keys, not ready to deliver the finale. First she would push them to the edge, make them unravel so thoroughly that, when the decisive instant came, they would collapse without another human touch. She slept not at all for 2 days. The bunker became a humming hall of machinery as she conducted the global signal. Engineers from every nation fed her adjustments, patching frequencies, rerouting power grids to fuel the composition. It became more than engineering. It felt like the planet breathing in concert with her. In the shadow beyond the moon, tension gripped the Armada. Commanders met behind closed doors, divided. Some demanded silencing Earth at once. Others whispered retreat, ashamed and wary. They could not fathom how a species still burning coal could reach into their control web and twist it. Clara listened close, catching fragments of their panic threaded between clipped commands. They had begun running endless simulations to counter her intrusion, but every scenario failed, because none of their models accounted for improvisation. The aliens thought in flawless symmetry, perfect sequences, absolute logic. Humanity did not. Humanity played jazz. Clara's eyes burned with fatigue, yet her lips curled faintly as she bent over the console. She wove discord into her symphony, not shapeless chaos but human irregularity. Patterns that shifted just when they became predictable. Notes that twisted one beat early. Silences in places silence did not belong. The fleet reeled. A battleship careened off course, its processors snarled by conflicting orders. Another vessel fired blindly into the void, striking its own ally. The flagship howled with alarms, failing to seal the breach. Clara pressed harder. She bent their frequencies into echoes of the alien's own language, warped until they resembled orders from higher command. To the Armada, it must have felt as though their council had betrayed them. Entire divisions froze, awaiting instructions that never came. Others fled headlong into emptiness, smashing against wreckage and each other. The colonel gaped at the displays. "You're tearing them apart," he breathed. Clara did not answer. Her hands blurred, shaping the crescendo. Then, with a final surge, she released the note she had been saving, the decisive strike. Every transmitter on Earth pulsed together, projecting a single unified tone into the stars. It was not thunderous by cosmic scale, yet it was undeniable. A human-born chord so alien to the invaders that it sliced through their harmony like flame through silk. The flagship convulsed. Its control lattice collapsed. The Armada shattered. Ships spun apart, colliding in cascades of fire. Some panicked, fleeing at full throttle into the deep. Others went dark entirely, their systems paralyzed by irreconcilable commands. Earth's night sky lit with trails of retreating lights, fading arcs from a once mighty fleet now broken. Humanity had not fired a missile. Yet the war was over. Clara sagged back, sweat streaking her face. For the first time she exhaled freely. Around her, the command center erupted in celebration. Cheers, embraces, shouts of triumph. But she remained silent. She knew the truth. Humanity had revealed something more dreadful than weapons. Unpredictability, the refusal to stay inside patterns. She was no general, no hero by choice, but she understood now. Victory lay not in force but in imagination. When the cheering subsided, the colonel approached once more, reverence softening his tone. "They'll remember this," he said quietly. "They'll never see us the same again." Clara nodded, though her gaze drifted far beyond the room. Already she was thinking forward. The invaders would carry this tale into the stars. The story of a small planet that forced an armada to retreat with nothing but sound and wit. Humanity would never be underestimated again. Months later, as life returned to its ordinary rhythm, Clara sat in her modest apartment, her equipment stacked in untidy heaps. At night, she still tinkered with her radios, chasing faint whispers in the static, listening for the day another signal might arrive. She no longer feared. Let them send fleets. Let them send threats. Let them send the weight of empires. Humans had proven themselves more than expected. They could adapt. They could imagine. And sometimes with one signal they could redirect the course of history. Clara switched off her console, smiled faintly, and whispered to the quiet. "Let them try.